she sent an email out to our little group and said, hey, I got this gig. It's a big gig for me. A season finale of Celebrity Apprentice at Rockefeller Center. I'll pay you. You'll get to go to the after party. Would you do me a favor? Because it was her first big gig and she wanted to really hit it out of the park. And I was like, oh, that show. Like, I want to see if Omarosa is a real person. Like, sure, I'll come and do it, Yeah. And that was the first season we shot it in Studio H, which is where they shoot SNL. That's where we had the fake boardroom and all that BS. You're hired, you're fired kind of thing. And it was Morgan and Omarosa were battling. And that's, I'd already done beauty pageants in the 90s, but that's, I sort of was reacquainted with him, and he had denigrated, this is when his Adderall addictions were apparent and all this other crazy stuff. I got to see, he couldn't really read a 3-syllable word and he would freak out on set. So the whole thing wasn't just an illusion. Like, it was hard to get a coherent take from him. He wouldn't show up a lot of days. When they were taping I did the finale, right? But like, they taped for 4 weeks before we shot that. He was just a mess. And in the beginning, I would take care of the celebrities that were involved, friends of mine, Cyndi Lauper, people like that. And then they assigned me to Ivanka. When Ivanka pushed out George Ross or whatever, he had an old man with white hair who was his sidekick, if you remember.
Yeah, sure, of course, yeah.
Right. And he was beloved. So Trump got jealous and kicked him out and made Ivanka like his right-hand man or woman. Yeah. And they assigned me to Ivanka because I was the guy in live TV who handled Madonna, who handled Michael Jackson, or the host of the whoever it was. The more difficult assignments, they wanted kind of a diplomatic person to do it, because I used to be diplomatic, and keep my mouth shut, so I was the Ivanka handler, which was a nightmare. She was like the only one to get a trailer. I would have to show up 5 hours early to let her glam squad in. I was there through the whole romance with Jared. They broke up. Wendy Dang Murdoch told them to get back together. Then the next season they were getting married, and those kids were running the show. Here's another point up. I know I'm long-winded. I apologize. I speak in parables.
I love this.
But they were running the show. Trump, Trump wants music to play when he walks in the room. He wants to get high and he wants to hit on women. Right? It's all about what can feed his narcissism in the moment. It's all about his ego getting attacked in real time. There's no self-discipline or long game with him. Jared and Ivanka clearly wanted the world, right? And they were the ones behind the scenes sort of whispering in his ear about things. She was the one who would talk him down. The breathy, cooey, sibilant porn star voice that she puts on is complete BS. Her real voice is like 2 octaves lower in real life, and she curses like a sailor. But she puts on this breathy thing because it turns him on, and she knows how to manipulate him in a soft, sexual way. It's eerie. I've seen him lap dances. That's not a joke. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. Brain bleach. Oh my God.
No.
And knowing that he fantasized about her in public in front of people at the White House, to the point where John Kelly had to say, that's your daughter. And that she played that up. I want to puke. Oh my God.
She totally played it up. And anybody who spent more than 10 minutes around Trump knows that he works that into a conversation. I mean, look at her, sweet piece of ass, right? Imagine that. No, I'm not even kidding. I got buddies who played golf with him, and we don't have to, it gets a lot darker. He was a frequent buddy of Jeffrey Epstein and visitor to his townhouse. And he did all horrible things that I unfortunately know about. And I know some of the people he did them to, not the public ones. And I can't tell their story because it's not my story to tell, and the E. Jean Carroll tells you everything about him, that story right there, that he would attack a woman in a dressing room at Bergdorf Goodman and then just walk back to his office or walk out to his security team and get in his That's the kind of stuff he did with impunity his whole life, right? So, and I'll shut up, but to get to my point, the reason I did this show as a joke in the beginning, and Trump was a joke. He wasn't running for president at this time. He did the Obama's birth certificate thing, and I think that's when he started to kind of lose it with NBC or whatever. But there was no, I'm running for president on the horizon when I worked for him. When he announced, I said to my colleagues, we have to come out and tell everybody what we saw, because can't get anywhere near the presidency. And my colleagues were like, dude, we signed an NDA. We'll never work again. He's not going to get elected. I can't go against the DGA. I can't risk, because Mark Burnett told everybody if they started to talk, he would sue them. Right. And that kind of went through the industry and shut everybody up. a friend of mine was working on Hillary's campaign. She goes, Noel, I see you're spilling the beans on Facebook and online and stuff. Would you be willing to talk to Hillary's campaign? I was like, heck yeah. So I talked to her campaign people. I told them what I knew. I talked to People magazine. They were going to do a big piece on it, and somehow it got killed. I think Hillary's campaign kind of felt like they were going to win anyway. And when I spoke with them was right before Access Hollywood broke. So I talked to him, and then like a few days later, the Access Hollywood story broke. And I think they thought, oh, well, he'll never get elected now. Of course, they didn't know what James Comey had up his sleeve a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
I don't think they took my warning seriously. And, we all know what happened in November of 16. And that's when I left my career. I'm done. I said, I got to just talk about this guy any chance I get, because people need to know this. And that's when I went into stand-up, because that was really my only avenue to speak out. I could get up on a comedy stage and be like, here's who this guy really is. You know what I mean? Because in the beginning, media was kind of going along with it.
Yep.
Right? They saw his reality, and I'll shut up. But I said to my colleague, they said, I'll never work again. Like if we break an NDA, I said, if this guy's president, you're not going to work again anyway, because he's going to ruin this country. And what happened? He mishandled COVID, and we shut down for a year and a half. There wasn't any production or anything for a long time, because not that COVID was his fault, but all he thought about was himself when it happened. And that's not what you want in a leader. You want somebody who thinks about other people all the time, like Biden,
Right. And it was about himself, but also what can you do for me, to the point where it was like, are you a nice governor or not a nice governor? And where you live in New York, I've driven through parts of New York State where I'm like, holy crap, this is so Trumpy. This is so red. Where I live is very, very red. But overall, the state voted Biden, and he was willing to hurt people in blue states. And I'm thinking, as I'm driving through your state, I'm like, buddy, with the Constitution on the side of your house and the Trump flag and the Confederate flag, he was going to keep you from having access to like life-saving COVID medicine and all the things and the supplies, because you live in a state that voted for Biden. And he's so like endlessly like narcissistic that he wants to make all of you punish all of you suffer. And he's going to punish his own people. Again, like you said, he so often despises the people who actually support him the most, but he's grossed out by them, but he also wants to inflict punishment on them if it makes him feel better about himself.
Yeah. And that's the worst thing. I mean, that's the first thing he did, right? He knew like New York State didn't vote for him. One of the first things he did was take away the pre-tax credit that people got on our thing. So in effect, we got our house in like July of 16. And by the next year, the property taxes had doubled to almost like 20 grand a year. He paid 700 grand, by the way, or no, $700 in property taxes on Bedminster in 2020 on 113 acres, prime New Jersey real estate. He paid $700 because he keeps 12 goats and uses a loophole, a farming loophole, on the estate. Sorry.
And now it's a graveyard.
Right. And now, exactly. Now it's a graveyard. It's just the scamming. But to your point of punishing, that's instantly what he did. He was like, all right, you guys didn't vote for me. I'm going to punish you. And, like you said, 60% of the people in New York State are Trumpers now. The idiots that are voting for him in Putnam County, paying twice for their ranch house, in property taxes and their quarter of an acre because of this clown, and he can still use that to his effect, right? Because he can say the Democrats raise your taxes, vote for him. That's why Florida was so hot for a minute before people realized what a clown DeSantis was. All the kind of towny folks I knew in New York, they all wanted to move to Florida. It was the new promised land for mediocre white suburbanites.
Right. And it's really all about the mythology. It's all that with Ivanka, that he's a family man, is that mythology, or that he's a, devout Christian, and there's that mythology, and that he's America first, there's that, he's a patriot, all the mythology. And like we said at the beginning of this, it all rests on this one lie where he is very, 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 very worried